Welcome to the Kolbecast, episode 211. Thank you for joining us. Today, Bonnie and I welcome Kolbe advisors Krysten, Pizzurro, and Jennifer Thomas to the Kolbecast. Krysten and Jennifer are both truly veteran homeschoolers, having both served in the military themselves while also being military spouses and, of course, experienced homeschoolers. In addition to sharing their experiences of homeschooling, they share their advice on how to make the most of Kolbe Academy to make your homeschooling journey a fulfilling one. We hope that you'll enjoy the show.
Hi there, I'm Bonnie, Kolbe homeschooling mom of 4 lads and lasses, liturgical musician, popcorn, and podcast fanatic.
And this is Stephen, homeschooling father of 5 and chief homeschooling officer for Kolbe Academy.
Stephen, it's been a while since we recorded. How do we do this again?
Yeah, so I think it's usually, kind of how's it going? How are things going? And so
Yes.
I was ready. I was ready today.
Oh, okay.
This is the kind of the last week of classes here at Kolbe, and so there's kind of a bittersweet sort of feeling that I'm getting from my kids, which is really enjoyable to see because they're both going to miss their classes and some of their wonderful teachers, but then they're going to be done with those classes next week. They'll be done. So they're also very excited about that. So
Yeah, well, that is like a nice thing to see that it's been a good experience and that they're sad to see that coming to an end. But there are things they're looking forward to at the same time. So, yep, this is the last week of classes for us online anyway. Some of us homeschoolers have a bit yet to go. That would be us at our house. So we have the end is out there somewhere, but yeah, we'll get there. Okay. So we're welcoming back friend of the Kolbecast, Krysten Pizzurro. Hi, Krysten. Welcome back.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me back.
Always enjoy having you here to visit with us and hearing whatever wisdom you want to share with us. We always learn a lot from. And we get to introduce another Kolbe advisor today, new to the advising staff, Mrs. Jennifer Thomas. Welcome to the Kolbecast. So nice to meet you.
Thank you for having me today.
I'm really glad to meet you and looking forward to getting to know you a bit. Today, we're going to be visiting with these two advisors to kind of get a glimpse of how these two make their day-to-day doings work. They are both Kolbe homeschooling moms and advisors now. So we're going to ask them all sorts of questions about how that all works. They also have another thing in common in that they're both military families. So we're going to speak a bit to the unique needs and aspects of military life and how homeschooling can work well for such folks and some of the ways that Kolbe can help with that and so forth. We're going to catch up with Krysten for a minute, though. How have things been going?
Good. Really good. Busy in my house. It's funny that Stephen was saying it was bittersweet. My kids have reached the total burnout stage. They're just really excited to be done.
Yes. There's that too. Yeah.
Not that it's been bad. Just, how you kind of reach that point of I feel like their little brains are kind of, they can't be stretched. They need a break.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it'll only take about 2 weeks before they'll be like, okay, now what do I do with myself and mom? So, and then we'll start summer things. I will share, our homeschool group here on our military base put on a huge production of Beauty and the Beast Junior last week. And so just trying to catch up and get back to center.
I've been wondering about that. I knew you were working on that play. And when Krysten says that their homeschool group was working on this play, Krysten had a significant role in making that happen. So I'm eager to hear how it all went. And I have an inkling of kind of what goes into a production like that. So I'm glad. Did it all go well?
Yeah, it was phenomenal. And we had, it was a free show for those on base. And so it was nice to be able to put that on. And the base CO came, the commanding officer came, and we were excited to be able to share it with people. The base has not had anything like this in the whole time that we've lived here, which is almost 9 years. So I think it was a lot of fun and the kids did amazing. We just continued to have people come up and think that they were really talking to Belle and think that they were really talking to Lumiere and Beast, and our costume person was just incredible. And so the kids all looked phenomenal. It was awesome.
Neat. I love that. I'd be curious to hear from our Kolbecast listeners who've taken part in theatrical productions through the year. I think that's a pretty common thing, and just hear how that goes for them and what all they've been up to with that and kind of what's coming up. That'd be a fun thing to hear about.
Yeah.
Okay, Jennifer, what's your story? Will you tell us about yourself and your background and your Kolbe connection?
Okay, so I was the mom that grew up, going to public school, never thought I would homeschool my children. And then when I was 6 months pregnant, my husband talked to me and he's like, I really think I should go back active duty. And I said, okay, I'm willing to try this. We moved from Texas to Wisconsin in the matter of 3 weeks. And so it was a big change. So I had my son and my first daughter when we were stationed up there. And I'd always thought, I'd find a good Catholic school to put my kids in, shouldn't be an issue. And then we moved to Missouri, and all of their requirements were different than what we were prepared for in Wisconsin, as far as what age your students could start school and all of those things. So then we kind of thought about homeschooling, and we looked at a few Catholic schools and decided on Kolbe being what we would try to homeschool the first year. And we did that when my son was in kindergarten and have been with Kolbe for 6 years now and can't imagine anything different. All through the Midwest, Kolbe just travels with us, so it's great.
I'm almost afraid to ask, but I'm going to ask anyway. How frequently do y'all move? It's a
So
thing, right?
it is
Often.
a thing. It's
Okay.
different than Krysten for some reason. We move a
I'll
lot.
explain in a minute. So you tell yours.
We move at least every 2 to 3 years, depending on if my husband's been promoted recently or if there's new job opportunities that would be better for his career.
Okay. Wow. What do you want to say about that, Krysten?
We are supposed to move the same, but it so happens that my husband's line of work, which is cyber and C4I, so those highly specialized tech guys, because of what he does, he's a manager of that. All of those exist here in the DC area. So he moves jobs every 2 to 3 years, but all those jobs are located here in Washington, DC. So we have been very fortunate. It actually, I don't know, God has a very interesting sense of humor, or just a design, beautiful design, because my dad was the same growing up. So I'm a Navy brat, and I spent most of my time growing up in Hawaii because my dad's his specialty in the Navy required that he was there. And so I got to spend, 11 years there in Hawaii, and we're at 9 years here in DC. So it's not a typical military setup. We've actually had neighbors come, go, and come back. And so they're like, wait, yeah, we're still here.
And your base, there are several branches of the military folks living there, right? I say that
Yes.
correctly? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So we have, I'm just trying to think down the street if I go Space Force, Air Force, Navy, we have an Army guy. So we're all here. Everybody's here. Coast Guard is so small that it could fit into one rank of the Army. The O3 rank is bigger than the entire Coast Guard. And so when other Coast Guard people move on base, it is highly likely that we know them. And so our neighbors have started to realize that. They're like, oh, do you know them? Like, I do. Not always, but like for the most part, yes.
Okay. That's funny. Okay. So I have a zillion questions that I want to ask. So the trick is deciding which one to start with. So let's talk a bit about each of you, what your homeschooling day-to-day kind of looks like, and starting with kind of what your space, how is your space set up for that? What does that look like, your household? Do you have schoolroom? Everybody's in a different room, that sort of thing?
Jennifer should show you the room she's in right now. Really cool.
I will. I'll pan over. I'm in the playroom with the jungle gym behind me.
I love it. That looks like genius. Like, do some schoolwork, then do some play. Sit back down and
Absolutely.
work. Get up and do something active. That's great.
It's good for those kids that need that heavy work, right, in between things to help their brain keep on functioning. I'm like, dang, why didn't I think of that?
Yes. Okay. And so what does your kind of schedule look like? Are you online, offline, a mix?
So my kids are 100% homeschool right now, and we're looking to start adding in some online classes for my son since he'll be going into sixth grade next year.
Okay. And so with you working for Kolbe now, what's a typical day look like for you guys, if there is one, or maybe like a typical week?
It just started in January, so all of this is 100% new. But with my son, he's always been a very independent worker and doesn't need a lot of input from me. Um, Most of the time, we'll have a couple of hours in the afternoon if we're going over new concepts in school. But other than that, he has his homework and everything done by maybe 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And because he'll start at 6:30 whenever he decides to wake up, and he's just on top of it. And then I have a daughter in second grade who is the exact opposite, and she wants to sit next to me and wants me to help her do everything and has all of the questions. So I usually have her working downstairs with me behind me at this little desk, and then I have a kindergartner, and so when she does do some school, it's usually in the afternoon when I'm off at work.
Okay. Sounds relatable. Yeah. And it's interesting how the different kids, how they like to work. And yeah. So does your fifth grader then have how does he know what he needs to be working on? Do y'all have like a planning meeting? Does he have a planner? Do you make him a list?
He's very much happy if I make a list, a detailed list. So I have a dry erase board in his room by his desk, and I will write down what he needs to cover in the following weeks. We usually try to go about 2 or 3 weeks out worth of assignments for him. And he surprises me because some days he'll get a whole lot done.
Yeah. So get on a roll.
Yes.
That's nice. Okay. And then, so what activities y'all have in the mix, school and working for Kolbe, other things going on to balance it, to blend in there?
My family is a part of American Heritage Girl and Trail Life. So we do a lot of that. And usually the kids do one sports a year, but we haven't really gotten settled here yet. So we're going to try to do that this summer.
Okay. Sounds good. Working for Kolbe as an advisor, how are you finding that? What does that integration, the parent side and the advisor side, how's that looking for you? What do you think? What are your thoughts there?
I've realized that I did not use my advisor to my full potential or her full potential.
Yeah.
And really, there's just so much knowledge in this group of advisors that I don't even know what questions to ask, and they know all of the answers. So it's really amazing to work with them.
That's been something I've just it kind of comes and goes, the inspiration to ask the question, what questions should I be asking? Like, I don't even know what to ask. What should I know? That's like in several scenarios, I'm trying to make it sort of a default. If I go in knowing there's something I should know here and I don't even know what it is, but I'll have to try that with the advisors. What do you think? Can you give one or two examples of that, of why you say could draw upon my advisor's input more, or you weren't making best full use of your advisor?
I was very scared in the beginning to contact my advisor, even though she was always very, very helpful and quick to respond. I just didn't want to be a burden to her. And now knowing that she really could have helped me navigate some of the issues I had in the very beginning, and it would have been stuff that she 100% could have helped me with.
Okay.
It could even look like, I don't know what I don't mean, what I don't know. And they, like, we've had to learn to dig a little bit. Okay, well, tell me about your day. Where are your struggles? What are you consistently finding is difficult? And tell me about your students. Are they the same? What are their strengths? And you go from there, right? Like, not every solution is going to fit every student. So
yeah, you guys are detectives.
we have to be.
Yeah. Okay. So then how do you, Jennifer, balance all you've got going on with other things, like other obligations or interests you have, hobbies or household or family obligations you have, or parish obligations, anything like that?
So we usually put church first and try to make all those commitments. And then as far as the house, things are a little bit rough still, trying to fall into a good schedule, trying to convince my husband we should just hire a service to come in and clean.
Yeah.
But juggling the 4 kids and So I have 4 children, I have 4 animals, and the nearest family is 9 hours away. So that is my hobbies. I don't have time
Yeah.
for much else.
Sure, sure. How old is your fourth?
I have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3.5-year-old.
Okay, okay. Very cool. Well, I'll come back and ask you about summer here in a little bit. I'm going to hear about Krysten. You've been on the Kolbecast several times, but so for folks for whom they're just meeting you on this episode, will you give us a little bit about your family and sort of your setup and structure and so forth?
Sure. We've been with Kolbe. We are going into our 12th year. Oh my goodness. Yes, so we're finishing up our 11th year. My oldest is a rising junior, and we've been with Kolbe from the beginning. I also, like Jennifer, never thought I'd homeschool. And it just, God laid it at our feet. And so that's what we've been doing. And we have usually just homeschooled, but recently more dabbled into the online. My oldest two do online classes. And then this past year, my third and fourth children did full-time online, and that's been a pretty big adjustment for them. And so that dictates a lot of our structure of our day. The two youngest sit with me down here in the basement to keep them on task. so
Yeah.
so they have to be very close. And then everybody has some kind of checklist that they have to. So what's great about Kolbe's online elementary program is that they have, it's, the WAG. And so it's a schedule of things that they need to be doing that day. And my third grader constantly is trying to, I don't have to do that. I'm like, it's on the list. It's on the list.
That's here. That's not what I see.
Needs to be done. And so we do start every single day with prayer, and we all come together. So we do a morning basket from 8 to 8:30, and that looks different every day. But some fundamental things that are the same are we do the readings of the day, we learn about the saint of the day, we say our prayers all together, just so that we can have a moment of centering ourselves on what is the most important before it kind of descends into everybody's chaos. So usually everybody is doing chores after school, and so the house is sort of picked up, but with tech week and our production last week, the house looks like a tornado hit it. So this week is probably not the best week for me to describe the state of my house.
Fair. Okay.
Not great.
Can all relate to that, I think. Yep.
No. I do have a 4-year-old that I do some preschool things with. She's speech delayed. And so the speech teacher that comes to our house really kind of insisted on us doing some kind of preschool structure to help with her speech. So we do that, and I do that before I start work and fit it all in. And sometimes I do it over my lunch break, depending on how I can break it up.
Yeah.
So, and then we have one of the biggest military homeschool. It's not a co-op, it's a group of parents that all come together. There's like 70 of us. And so there's over 200 kids in it. And we provide all kinds of different classes. So basically a parent says, hey, I've got this skill. Do you think anybody would want to learn it? And one is like, I know how to braid hair really well in different ways. And so you can come and learn how to braid hair. Some people know how to bake. Some people they used to teach chemistry in high school. And so they'll teach a chemistry class, and we have PE teachers and all of that. And so it's a great way to get socialization and have friends and learn some things along the way. So that is for sure. We talk about all the time how my kids don't struggle in the socialization. I wish we could socialize a little less sometimes. So
yeah,
that's not. And so just going to the balancing with my husband and I are not really good at
You're
balancing.
laughing about the balance.
Not very good at this. My husband is the Cub Scout master and has been for years. And so he runs Cub Scouts for the base. And then our two oldest are in the Boy Scout troop as well. And so he does all the camping things. And I finally, after our fifth was born, had to bow out. I was like, I can't, this is too much for me to
Maybe
handle.
not anymore.
Yeah. So, but I just fill it with other things. And so theater was what I took on this year, and I directed the theater group, and I had a really great time with that.
Very cool. So with you working for Kolbe, then you've mentioned kind of how you fit things in around your workday. What are your thoughts about kind of seeing both sides as an advisor and as a parent now that you've been at it for a while?
Yeah, it's funny when I first started working here, and some of the things that I had realized, not optional, but like things that I would have changed about schooling my two oldest when they were little, like in third, fourth, and fifth grade, that I felt like I needed permission, which is funny because Celeste and Ashley were both my advisors, through the years. And so talking to both of them, they were like, you've never needed permission, but I didn't know that. I am a box checker. And so I felt like I needed permission. So this is me telling anyone who I am an advisor for, you don't need my permission, but call me and I'll give it to you if you really need it. So like, know what I mean? Like if you feel like, but I need someone to tell me it's okay, I will call me. I'll tell you it's okay.
Nice.
So that it's definitely been nice to see that side of it. I was the director for the group here on base for a couple of years. And so I did a lot of this with not Kolbe, centered, but just homeschooling centered with a lot of families. So it's kind of nice to start getting paid for what I was already doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed it, but being on this side of it is kind of nice. It's eye-opening to see all the different pieces that really go into it. Everything is really well thought out. It's not like Kolbe makes decisions and it's like, we'll just see how it goes.
Let's try this.
Yeah. Yeah. And then being able to come in and say, hey, as a parent, it would be really well if we could, great if we communicated this change like this, because it's not going to, maybe won't be well received this way, or nobody's going to read that part of the email unless you word it this way or whatever.
Yeah. Good. So let's talk a bit about the benefits and unique needs of homeschooling for military families. What have you found in your multiple moves about homeschooling? How has that helped you transition through those?
So with Kolbe, it's just nice because we've gone from Wisconsin to Missouri to the Illinois side of St. Louis to Nebraska and then back to Illinois. And my kids' curriculum doesn't change. I have the same schooling system the whole time. I don't have to worry about whether or not one school was a little bit behind and then they're going to start a new school system and it's not going to cover something that they might have missed. Growing up, I moved around a lot, so I literally did not know how to do fractions. And I have a college degree and I still cannot do fractions. So I know that having a continuous school system for your children is very, very important for them. And we're just fortunate that Kolbe is with us for every move. And they're so helpful because half the time I have my books or something sent to an old address and they're like, it's okay. We can reroute it. It's fine. They fix everything. It's great.
Good.
From a high school perspective, I have a lot of friends over the years who have talked about when you move with the military, not all high schools will receive the credits from the previous high school. So there have been cases where students have to do a fifth year of high school through no fault of their own, right? They've gone to high school, they've done what they were supposed to do, but because their father or mother is in the military and they were forced to move, all of their credits weren't accepted, or the receiving school had a requirement that they had to take a certain number of classes from that school. And so they end up having to do more. And it can be really upsetting. And so it's really nice to know that that's not going to happen for my kids. We have Kolbe, and Kolbe will stay with us, and we can even, trade out classes, but like the curriculum that we've chosen and the path that we have chosen will continue to follow them. And that I don't have that angst, because that's not something you want to have to broach with your kids. And, those families have definitely had to deal with more struggles than just, hey, dad is deploying. And also, by the way, you have to retake this class. Sorry.
I can't imagine how difficult it is with all the moving, with as far as moving the books and things like that, and all of the stuff that has to go along with that. But I mean, I remember public school and how difficult it was for new kids to come in and be part of that. But so that's just difficult for children, I think, when you're moving about. But when I look at that from a positive aspect of seeing my family, we've homeschooled all the way through, and how close everybody is with it. I mean, that's the first thing. We're all there as a family, so that's very tight. We spend all our time together, and then we may have friends with other families and things so there's outside influences as well. But I just think homeschooling would be so much better for not just the educational thing, but just the stability of, these are my core relationships and they never leave me, sort of things.
Yep. Big time. Having that, right. My mom was always big on, your sister is your best friend, not because that was who stayed, right?
Yes.
Like, as other people move, and you can count on your family. And so that was the lesson that was kind of drilled into my head, that I'm hoping that my children have taken as well. Like, family is the most important, and we stick together, and we defend each other, and we make sure that we're taken care of.
We say that to our 6-year-old and our 8-year-old daughters right now, that this is your best friend. They're going to be with you, until you're grown up, and then they're still going to be your family. So this is who you have to count on right now.
That continuity of the school and the family. So how about this? What questions should I be asking about what unique needs there are for homeschoolers who are military families?
Finding a community can be really difficult. Every military base has a school liaison officer called a SLO. Plug into them right away and ask them. They don't always know where you might find a homeschooling group, but many of them do. Going to your local church and asking them. Find the priest and say, are there other homeschoolers? He may not know about a group, but he can point you to another homeschooling mom, because I bet they go to daily mass, and say, go find that mom with the 8 kids and ask her, because it can get really lonely, especially if you don't have a big homeschooling group. And that's okay. You don't have to have a big group, but having someone else to connect to is a big deal. So plugging in and trying to find, and I feel a little bit like military spouses become kind of chameleons. And even, I'm an introvert, so introducing to myself to someone I have never met before is not my idea of a good time, but I do it because you need friends, and my kids need friends. And so I've just learned to take a deep breath, introduce myself, and try not to talk too fast, because I talk too fast when I'm nervous.
Krysten, you're so right. It's so funny. That is exactly how we get through things. Is I convince myself that, number one, I can't be alone on this island here. I need to have at least a few grown-ups I can talk to. And then, yeah, you do what you have to do for your kids to meet new people.
Wow. So is it a branch by branch thing in terms of, is it when you approach and say, I'm going to be homeschooling, are there several hoops to jump through for that sort of thing?
So in my experience, the military has no clue what I'm doing with my children.
Okay.
No, so I just have to abide by whatever the state laws are for wherever we're located. I'm pretty sure if you go overseas, then your military chain of command and base will help you out more with what the requirements are. But lucky for us, the Midwest is very homeschool friendly.
Okay.
Yeah. So there are a couple of different, it gets confusing for military. And so some try to skirt a little bit. You do in the military have to follow the homeschooling laws of the state in which you reside, not your state of record. So that is very different, and it becomes very controversial, but it shouldn't be, because it's law. So even though so my husband and I are both residents of the state of Alaska. Alaska has its own homeschooling laws, but we don't live in Alaska. We live in Washington, D.C. We file our notice of intent and follow the laws of Washington, D.C. You have to. You have to file with wherever you physically reside. If you are overseas, the law SOFA guides all the aspects that you have to follow. So those are the things, those are like the technical things that you have to follow. I have found just a couple of times, it's not very often, that the military would like to move people off cycle. So the Coast Guard typically moves only in the summertime between. And so they not abuse, but they like take liberal use of the fact if your kids are homeschooled, they're like, well, your kids are homeschooled, it'll just follow you. So you can move like in December. So that comes up a couple of times, but I don't find it very often. Otherwise, the military has no idea how your kids are schooled.
Okay. So that then becomes another item on the list then to look up the laws where you're headed if you're being moved. Yeah. And
Yes.
is that how do you guide people with that?
Yeah, so usually I ask them to look at the HSLDA website and look at where they're going, and then we talk about how Kolbe can help them meet those requirements. So they can outline, like sometimes there are a couple of states in the Midwest that have hourly requirements, and so we talk about how they don't have to change what they're doing. We will just modify how they have to report it to that state.
Okay. And that's the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, right? You mentioned HSLDA. Okay. We'll put a link to that in our show notes. And we have an episode actually with someone from that organization. It's vintage. It's going back a bit. So that'll be a fun trip back in time for that one, but we'll share that nonetheless. So how often does this conversation come up for you all as advisors now? Can you give sort of a sense of how many Kolbe families you're working with who are military?
I've gotten about, I don't know, I don't want to exaggerate, but probably 90 new students in the past 2 weeks. So I'm not real sure yet, but there are some families who reach out and say that they're military family, and it's just kind of nice because then they feel like I understand what they're going through and I understand some of the more like delicate things about homeschooling your children than maybe some other advisors would.
Yeah, I want to say I have at least a dozen that I'm aware of that I've talked to about specific military concerns. I'm sure there are more in my set of advising families, but at least a dozen that I've talked to about specific concerns about having to move, or, hey, we're headed back from overseas. How does this transition work? Or we're headed overseas. How can we do this?
So y'all are then part of their community. You're just talking about the importance of establishing community in your local places, but y'all are part of that. You travel with them also. They take you with them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I actually just got an email yesterday, the day before, from a family that's moving to this area. And they were like, oh, I'm sure we'll meet you. And I'm like, I'm sure.
Very fun. And you've referred to this, but I'd love for you to develop it further. How Kolbe can help meet the needs and situations of families who are in the military moving around or not, just those particular needs. How do you see Kolbe being well suited to that?
I like that Kolbe will tell you, you don't have to follow the curriculum 100%. You need to follow what your state requires. And so I think that's really important for military families to remember, is that you can always change things up, change what subjects you want to take. Nothing is mandatory. And then you just have to make sure that you're following whatever local laws there are.
I really like kind of with some of the things you've been talking about of like, reach out to your advisor, and now just the statement of like, yes, you do have this kind of Kolbe community, and then you want to have your local community as well. So, but like this, yeah, reach out to your advisor, reach out to the people, first, and just how important. Some people don't have much of a local community, but with your advisor, at least you can have this conversation with somebody who has all sorts of other people they can ask if they don't know the answer to the questions. They probably will know the answer to the question, but if not, there's all sorts of other people that are part of the community that can help out. And I see that fairly regularly, where people are like we're going to reach out to this person and see if they'll connect with that person to kind of help them with this unique situation they're in, which isn't unique after all, it turns out. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's many of the things that have come up are applicable to all our Kolbe families, and but certainly the encouragement to visit with advisors to keep them in the loop and draw upon their expertise a lot, all the more so for our military families. Is there anything else I should be asking about military homeschool life at this point?
No, I think there are many Kolbe staff that are military, and so you might be surprised at how much they can relate to where you're at. So it takes its toll emotionally to have to move. Your children may express that in many different ways that may come through tears, anger, frustration, outbursts, all of that. And so communicating, if your kids are in online classes, communicate with their teachers and let them know, hey, our family is preparing for a move. That Bluey episode came out with a move and it ended with they didn't have to move. And that's not the reality for any military family. You don't get to just say, I don't want to. It's an order. You have to go. And so just keeping kind of everyone in the loop and realizing that they want to support you. They want to know that, hey, this is a really difficult time. This is a huge transition for our family. If you are coming back to the States, going overseas, that transition is like any other, even within moving within the United States, because it really does. It's a huge thing to leave a lot of family behind or to come back to, the United States after 3, 4, sometimes longer years away. And it's different than when you left. So just realizing that you have a home, in Kolbe, and that people are here to support you and they want to support you. Just, it's okay to be a little vulnerable, which is also hard for a military spouse.
Sure. Yeah. Do you find that the structure that Kolbe offers, which families can make as much or as little of as they would prefer, do you find that structure lends itself well to families who are military? Is there some comfort or familiarity or other benefit in the structure that Kolbe offers?
Works for, both Jennifer and I are both prior military as well. And so I'm a box checker through and through, and Kolbe appeals to that side of me. And I don't know, I really like the structure of it. And so it does provide kind of a basis of me to have structure for my days and to be able to say, well, this is what's coming next. And I can look forward. Unknown can be scary. And so having that known of this is what we're going to cover in a month, and this is what we're going to do next year, this is whatever, can be kind of comforting.
Sure.
Well, and one of the benefits of not only homeschooling with Kolbe, but working for Kolbe now is that if my husband moves, I'm not looking for a new job. Kolbe will move with us. And so that's just one of the best things.
As both of you are talking, I'm kind of realizing, well, as sane military mothers, it seems like if you're going to be sane as a military wife and mom, you kind of have to have a certain amount of get it done to survive. Otherwise, you're not going to be sane at all. So it kind of lends itself to homeschooling because dealing with all that chaos, so it seems like if you can do it as already as a wife and mother in the military, you can do it as a homeschooling mom too.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Yep.
If everything else is raining chaos, you're like, well, we can do math. We have that. Let's do that.
That's a good starting point. That's half the battle, right? Is like, just find something and start somewhere. Right?
This is all we're going to get done today. No problem.
All right. That's all right. Yep. Well, going back, since this is airing over the summertime, let's talk about summer for a little bit. What does summer look like for your family, Jennifer?
So for my family, we're originally from Kansas and Texas. And so we're always at least 9 hours away from home. We'll make a big trip to Texas this year, and we usually school through the summer. So it gives us lots of time to take breaks during the school year. So that kind of helps fill up our mornings is still homeschooling and then trips and mostly the kids playing outside with the neighbors. And it's just such a great military community here that we have lots of kids and it's a really safe area.
Good. Right for you, Krysten.
Our summer usually is, because we've been in this area for a while now, we kind of have our routines. And so our summer looks like summer swim for my kids. We're swimmers, and so we swim all year long, but summer swim is fun and they get ribbons and things like that. So they're really excited about that. And that's an every day. And then when we get home from swim, I do like a summer bridge book or something where it really shouldn't take more than 20 minutes to just, let's do a little bit of exercising our brain, and then they're off and reading or outside or back at the pool. I mean, we're trying to be outside as much as possible. We have Vacation Bible School that runs here on base. And then this year we're going down to my sister's who lives 3 hours south from us. And we're going to do her VBS as well and help her with that. And then we have a cool program called Missoula that comes. It's a children's community theater. They travel in a truck, like it's 2 college students, and they come and they spend a week and they put on a show at the end of the week with the kids. So they come on a Monday and they do like these crazy fun auditions, and then they give all the kids a role, and then they practice for 5 days and they do a production at the end of the week. And so it's not just military, but they do travel to most of the military bases. And so yeah, so they'll be back this summer. And so those are just the kind of throughout the summer, how that will look. I'm hoping to have more downtime than last summer, but we'll see.
You never have downtime anymore. I love it.
We can hope. Yes. Yep. Best of intentions there. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, any final thoughts or takeaways you want to leave with our listeners?
You can do it.
Yes.
Yep. You got this. Mm-hmm.
Call your advisor.
And ask all the questions you can. There's no bad question.
Including, what should I be asking?
Yes. Yes. And if your advisor tells you you don't have to do those 15 classes, just believe her as a mom who should have listened.
You come from a place of firsthand knowledge there, Krysten.
Yes.
You and me both.
My poor guinea pig first child.
Mm-hmm. I think we all have that same first child.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So looking forward, I mean, this is entering kind of year 3 of when Kolbe's return to, the fall will be year 3 of Family Advisors. And, we still have a ways to go, but won't that be fun when you actually kind of can get to know your families well enough that they just call you up? It's like, I'm starting to get stressed about this. Could you help me with this problem? Rather than I've had it. I've done.
Yeah. Right.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's fun even now, right? So I'm entering into my 3rd school year with quite a few families. And so it's kind of fun to see that progression of, okay, well, how'd that go last year? Oh, we didn't like that. Okay, let's do something different. Let's
Yeah.
Or what's on the docket for this year? What does this year look like for you guys? And so it is fun. I really like that. I enjoy having family.
Do you all find that folks are increasingly contacting you? Like I can think back to kind of when I started, and I knew the advisors were there. I didn't necessarily reach out. Find that folks are kind of coming around to that, like, yes, we're here to talk to you along the way. It's not just enrollment time and what are you going to do that, or we've crashed and burned on this, what happens now, that kind of thing.
I don't think that people reach out as often as they really should. So I've only been here since January, and I just thought of a family that had enrolled late. And so I just emailed and made sure they were doing okay. And it turns out they were having, massive struggles. And I was like, no, you can contact me for these things. Like I can help with these things.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've been grateful to receive those sort of check-in emails. And then I'm like, but I have 26 things to tell her in response. And I have to get started typing that. And I said, instead of saying all those things, I say nothing, like, okay.
I know. And that's okay. And so I don't want families to feel like they have to, like it's somehow derogatory that they have to call their advisor. Like,
Yeah.
no, we're here. We're like, I want them to think of me like their sister. Like, I'm trying to help you. Right. Like,
Yeah.
I call my
Yep.
sister when I don't know what to do. So call me.
Yeah. Yep.
I was thinking of when you mentioned the like you looking for somebody, the homeschooling group, go into the church and well, the priest might tell you, but look, okay, that family at the daily mass with 8 kids, they're homeschooling. So here it's like
Just saying.
advisors are like that mom,
Yes.
Yeah.
you know they know about Kolbe and about homeschooling. So just ask them. They're happy to.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Mhm. Well said. Listeners, I bet you can guess what I'm about to say, but I'll say it anyway. Please check our show notes for links to things that came up during our conversation today, as well as links to relevant Kolbecast episodes. And let us know your feedback. We'd love to hear from you via email or by commenting on the social media posts for this episode. Jennifer, I'm so happy to have met you and look forward to hopefully getting together again real soon. And Krysten, it's always great to see you. We so appreciate both of you and all you do for our Kolbe families. Thank you both, along with your families and all the military families listening in, for your service to our country. Know of our prayers for you, along with our gratitude.
Thanks for having us.
Subscribe to the Kolbecast on your favorite podcast app so that you don't miss an episode. And let us know how we're doing by leaving a rating or a review. And as always, feel free to email us at podcast@kolbe.org.
Mary, our Mother, pray for us. St. Maximilian Kolbe, St. Ignatius of Loyola, holy saints and angels, pray for us. Ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam.